What up, though?
What up? What up, everybody? What up, everybody? So we back again for another episode of Dominant Effect. Got Archbishop, got Mike Ball, and we got Aaron Olinger. And before we top this show off this time, we got we missed a week because of Hurricane Milton. But we're gonna talk about that a little bit. It's kind of one of the points of this show, but we're gonna hit it in that a little bit. But before we get into all that, we're gonna find out what everybody been up to this week. So we'll start with Aaron first. What'd you end up doing this week, brother? You had
Oh,
a week hiatus from having to do this.
right,
So
right. Well, this weekend I had a karate tournament I attended as a vendor, and my daughter went and worked it with me, and I got to spend the day with family. So I had a good time just spending time with her and watching all the kids compete in the competition.
Nice.
that's cool.
Yeah,
That's cool.
with me on my side, it's just been really just I can't walk still, so I probably got another, if I had to guess, because it keeps backing up a little bit week by week. It's probably going to be about 2 more weeks. Nonetheless, I've still been having a blast. I'm going over to the neighbors. We're doing big mega bonfires with like 3 different trees and shit. It's been a great time. Good food, good drinks, man. That's around family.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Well, of course, y'all know I'm down here in Florida, so I'm probably about 25 miles um, east of Tampa. So we got hit. We got hit pretty good.
Yeah.
Um,
Hence why no show last week.
right. Um, didn't have didn't have any structural damage, thank God, but had a lot of trees down, a little bit of water, but not
I
in the
was gonna
house.
ask that if water went in the house, but good.
No, no, I didn't have that. Didn't have no water in the house. Just mostly outside. Couple huge trees was down, and down in the yard, across the street, down the street. Um, a lot of these lakes here in this particular city, there's a lot of lakes that surround this city, and they flooded. So of course, there's a lot of places that's still flooded right now. Um, I'm gonna tell you what, gasoline is scarce, scarce.
Yep.
Uh,
When I heard they only had 1.1 million gallons of gasoline and only 1.5 million barrel or gallons actually of diesel, I was like,
Diesel.
they're screwed. They're screwed.
hmm Yeah, there's well, you have a couple different things. One, you got power outages. So you
Yeah.
have um as of Friday, you had 3.6 million people without power as of
Whoa.
Friday.
I knew it
It's
was a lot, but I didn't know it was that many.
Yeah, so it's I mean they're out there doing their thing, and it's they're trying getting the lights back on and stuff like that. But you got a lot of places that was hit hard. Tampa was hit pretty hard. St. Pete, Clearwater, a lot of coastal areas were hit pretty hard. And if you were in that that northern loop where you picked up all the rain and stuff, I mean you got hit real hard. Um, I think Tampa picked up on top of the storm surge. They picked up like an extra, was it 12 to 14 inches of actual rain.
Mm.
St. Pete picked up like 18. Clearwater picked up like 15, 16. I think we picked up like 10 here.
So did
Uh,
you and anyone else around you lose any power at all?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, we
you
lost
guys
power.
did.
Yeah, we
Oh,
lost
damn.
power. Um, this whole town went black.
Mhm.
Um, there's still several towns right now that's just right around me that's still black right
That's what I've
now.
been hearing. Yeah, there's like
Mhm.
still a freak ton that don't have power. It's unreal.
I mean, you got to think you got a lot of poles down, you got lines down, you got trees in the lines that have knocked them down. Um, the when I was out the other day looking for gas, and mind you, I had gas here for my generators and stuff like that, but I'm just driving around, and there was maybe like 2, 3 spots that had gas, and you had hundreds of cars lined up. I mean, they're lined up on both sides of the road, going all the way down the street. I mean, people out, um, they arguing and fussing and fighting, trying to, because thinking somebody getting ready to cut in front of them for they can to get gas and all that stuff. It was crazy. Um, I didn't even need gas at that point in time, but I just wanted to sit there and just kind of watch it. You know what I mean? Just to watch exactly how people act when you have a situation where there's something that's no longer plentiful, like gas.
Right. All of a sudden,
Mm.
you might have some things being shown and drawn, and
Right.
could
Like,
be all out war.
right, right, exactly. So you had a couple different things going on. You had the gas situation, and you had the fact that people didn't have power. And just to see how people would react, you know what I mean? Because we talk about this stuff all the time about when disastrous things happen and stuff like that, how people respond to it, whether you're ready for the situation or you're not, and you're going to be running around here scavenging around trying to, fend for yourself, get the stuff that you need or whatever when you could have got it a long time ago.
Right. Don't wait last second like that.
Right.
Jeez.
And you can see that a lot, you know. But I did see, like, even with some of the spots that they had, when the power came back on in some of these spots, you seen people ripping and running up and down the road. But the funny thing was, it was like, okay, there's still no gas. So why you ripping and running up and down the road? You trying to,
Right.
I mean, literally Walmart was wall to wall people in Walmart. There were so many cars in Walmart that you couldn't even get into the parking lot.
That's
Why?
ridiculous. Oh man, that's
Why?
ridiculous.
You know what I mean? Why would you
Yeah.
go in there like that? You know what I mean? Now, especially being the fact that you don't have gas.
Yeah, learn how to conserve some stuff. Like
That's
why just because you have a tank right this second doesn't mean you should floor it everywhere you go.
exactly,
Damn.
exactly. Um, I ended up when I got gas the first time, um, I had to literally go, believe it or not, 80 miles south to get gas.
No shit.
80 miles south.
80 miles?
80 miles south to get gas because there was nowhere, no gas stations whatsoever. You go by everything taped up, bags on the pumps, whatever. You could not get
Did you
nowhere.
start calling them ahead of schedule? Like,
We used
hey,
calling them, but nobody
you
had
guys
it.
got
You just had to
anything? Nope.
right, you just had to just scavenge around and see who had it.
That's
You know what I
unreal.
mean? And then you even went to spots where, you see people at the pump and you're like, oh, okay, they got gas. And you pull up and you be like, is it gas? No, ain't no gas.
No, there ain't nothing.
Why you sitting here? why you sitting at the pump?
You
What I
pump
mean? There
faked
ain't no
me.
gas. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's been crazy. But you know, there's so much stuff that's been going on. And you notice that these storms has been intensifying. They've been, bigger, more grander storms, causing way
New
more destruction.
records.
I mean,
Yep.
yeah, record breaker storms. So one of the things, and when you start talking about manipulating storms and stuff like that, people say, "Oh, that's just a big conspiracy theory," and rightfully so. When you first hear about something like that, you be like, "Oh Lord, they getting ready to make up this conspiracy theory about the government coming in and making these storms." But today, we're going to prove to you that not only this not a conspiracy theory, but this stuff has actually been going along for a pretty long time. They've been manipulating the weather. They've been manipulating these storms, and they've just gotten gooder at it. And then we're going to talk about the reason why it's possible as to why they're doing it. So this is our focal point for the evening. So we're gonna hit it running. There was a documentary that I listened to the other day, and there was a guy there by the name of Dane Willington, and he's a geoengineer, and he's dealt with this for well over 25 plus years, and he was talking about throughout the time, how even back until um, the early 1900s, that they were coming up with ways to manipulate the weather. You know, it's gotten way more advanced now than it ever was then. But if you go through and look, there's well over 200 different patents that's filed that's dealing with weather modification, weather manipulation. Now they're using it more towards using more frequency-based equipment, rad radar, HARP, other different new generation equipment that they're using, that they can not only strengthen the storm, but they can also direct it into the path that they want it to go.
Wow.
Now, I didn't believe this. I didn't believe this when I first read it. The first thing I thought was blatant conspiracy theory, blatant conspiracy theory. But I got a video that I'm gonna play right quick. And this is back in 2013 when he had one of the prominent scientists. And I know when you see this scientist on here, a lot of people are going to know who he is because he's been on several shows, several documentaries throughout the years. So I'm gonna play this one here, and then we're gonna pick it up from there and start chiming in from this point. Okay.
Climate change yesterday, and now we're learning that scientists and researchers are looking at how to change the weather on purpose. That's right, lasers now could one day manipulate rain and lightning. CBS This Morning contributor Michio Kaku is a physics professor at City College of New York. Professor, nice to see you. Extraordinary seeing Al Gore and Bill Clinton there together with Charlie, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, they did not get into this discussion,
No.
though. But it is fascinating. I mean, lasers, really, to change the weather?
That's right. Well, as Mark Twain once famously said, everyone complains about the weather, but no one ever does anything about it. Well, instead of doing a rain dance, we physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts. This is potentially a game changer.
But this is experimental.
It's experimental. However, in the laboratory so far, it works. When you have water vapor and you have dust particles or ice crystals, you can precipitate rain. It condenses around the seeds. These seeds can also be created by laser beams. By firing trillion-watt lasers, you rip apart the electrons, creating what are called ions, and these ions act like seeds, like dust particles, bringing down rain and even lightning. Katie, go ahead.
Well, this fascinates me in part because, too, I remember reading the stories that China had used this during the Olympics, that the USSR had used this after Chernobyl to create rain clouds. I mean, did those really work then? We have some of these capabilities now?
Inconclusive. Even in the 60s, the CIA used this to bring down monsoons during the Vietnam War, to wash out the Viet Cong. Governments have been playing with this thing.
Alleged to.
Alleged to, right.
Yeah.
Now, we realize that for decades now, these governments have been alleged to have experimented with weather control, but nothing conclusive. This time we're bringing in the laws of physics rather than simply waving our hands and uttering mumbo jumbo. We're actually using trillion-watt lasers now. And in the laboratory, sure enough, they precipitate rain out of water vapor. Sure enough, you can actually bring down electricity down the beam.
So what does it mean for drought areas that need to have rain for crops, and if they don't have them, there's the consequences of famine?
Well, the bad news is if it's a clear blue sky, it's not going to do anything at all because it only takes water vapor that's already in the air and condenses it. However, for floods, for agriculture, farmers, for people planning wedding parties, football games, you name it, outdoor events and agriculture and flooding and even hurricanes, all of them could be subject to weather modification.
Incredibly interesting, Professor Michio Kaku. Thank you so much.
That was talked about in 2013.
Right.
You know, and like I said, I guarantee you probably about 90% of the people that's watching this would have no idea that even took place, that particular
Event.
report even happened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's just to show that, number one, this is not a conspiracy theory. Just wanted to put that out there. That's why I played that one first.
Makes
But
sense.
the first, like I said, there's different ones, but there was one in particular that stood out, and it was one that was called Project Cirrus, and this was back 77 years ago. Happened back in 1947, where you had General Electric did a project to try to weaponize the weather, and so what they did, of course, like I said, of course, everybody denied it for like 12, 13 years. They denied this even took place, but it did. So what they did was they did this project to try to weaponize the weather, thinking that they could add something to the wall to be able to decrease the temperature of the wall to make it, gain pressure or lower pressure.
Sure.
To be able to do what they wanted to do. So they took
Meaning in control of direction, like they're
right,
controlling the direction of the pressure.
right, be able to actually like take a storm, build it, and then send it in the direction that you want it to go.
Unreal.
So they went through with airplanes and they dropped 180 pounds of dry ice and silver iodine into the clouds, into the actual storm wall of these clouds, into this hurricane that was sitting out in the Atlantic. Wasn't even heading this way. Okay, it was sitting out in the Atlantic, which right now we got a hurricane that's sitting out in the Atlantic right now. That's just going on by this business. They ain't even coming nowhere near here. So they went through and they dropped this stuff into these clouds. But what happened? That hurricane intensified, and instead of going on about his business, it changed course and came in and hit Savannah, Georgia. Now, once that happened, of course, like I said, GE denied it for a long time because a lot of people was blaming GM, saying, I mean, if y'all wasn't doing this storm never would have came here because it was way out into the Atlantic. It didn't even have no inkling of coming this way until they manipulated it.
Weird. So
that was one of the first actual documented ones that they can go back to and say, like, okay, this started at this.
What was the name of that storm? That particular one?
I'm trying to think. You know what? I don't have it.
Got you.
I don't have it. The name of the actual storm that they had on it. Let me see. I think, well, you know what? Probably so. I can pull it up and try to find it because I know that storm there happened October 14th, 1947.
1947. Wow.
In Savannah,
So
Savannah,
crazy.
Georgia. Yeah, so it's stuff that they've been doing it, little experiments here and there, but it's gotten to the point now that new technology, new different ways of doing things, and they're able to broaden it and make these storms even bigger and more robust than what they had before. Now, you remember we did a show a while ago when I showed how they were making the clouds from the ground, from them factories, making the clouds, setting them up to where they went over particular areas and were able to start raining. And they said they was using that for like drought situations and stuff like that. And, we was also talking about cloud seeding and stuff, Is that the one there?
Yep. Hurricane King right here.
There you go.
That was the name of it, just for reference there.
Hurricane King. Okay. So like I said, so on the last show, you remember we talked about that for a good little bit about the different ways that they were doing it, how they were doing the cloud seeding.
Yes.
And because that's what actually happened over in Dubai that started that massive storm with the flood and everything that happened there.
In the middle of the desert.
Right.
Flooding.
Right. And then it comes out like, oh, well, we've been doing it, we do it like
we've been doing it forever.
Yeah, just never done it to this extreme, even back during Vietnam, they were manipulating the weather. That's where that Operation Popeye came in, where they were just basically kept it in monsoon season.
Just
so it rained the whole time.
Having it dump on the Viet Cong the entire time.
Right.
God,
You know,
terrible
so
fighting
then,
conditions.
right. So then even after Vietnam was over, a lot of these nations came together and signed a treaty saying that they would not weaponize weather again.
Mm,
You know,
interesting.
And then you had Iran that actually went into the United Nations at one point in time and threatened and was yelling at the top of their lungs that that NATO was interfering with their precipitation, basically saying that they were doing, doing stuff with the weather to where they're not getting rain and being able to, uh, have water for the crops and all this stuff, that they were doing something to the weather to manipulate the weather to just make it hot. No rain whatsoever, just make it hot. Of course, nobody really knows what happened after that, but it was said, and it is documented that Iran did go into the United Nations claiming that this is what NATO had been doing to them and wanted them to stop.
Oh
So
man.
yeah, so this has been ongoing for a while. So Aaron, I know you jumped into this. You looked up some other information about a couple other storms that we were talking about. So I'm gonna let you tell yours right quick.
Okay. Well, I want to add one thing to what you were saying. The theory was that if you can change the temperature outside the eye wall by cloud seeding, that you can adjust the intensity and direction. That storm changed direction by 130 degrees. I mean, that's a massive turn to head in. Now, a guy named Irving Langmuir, he was the pioneer of atmospheric research for General Electric. They contracted with the military because the military wanted a weaponized weather weapon, or a way to weaponize weather. And he was the pioneer for General Electric that helped to provide that. I mean, he later admitted that rainmaking caused the floods in 1951. He also admitted later that reversal of that hurricane was caused by Project Cirrus. So he himself worked on both projects, and he admitted to it later in public. Now, in 1965, you have Project Storm Fury. That's where they cloud seeded Hurricane Betsy, and the storm immediately changed direction and made landfall in southern Florida. The government, of course, denied it. But after 2 months of congressional hearings, the project was allowed to continue, which makes me wonder if there was some lobbying done, because if you were called to testify before Congress as to being responsible for this, and then later they decide, well, yeah, you can go ahead and continue with it, there's something wrong with that ideology right there by itself.
Mm-hmm.
Then in April 1997, U.S. Defense Secretary William Cohen, he admitted that we have the technology to control the weather, including earthquakes and volcanoes. I mean, that was a bold statement, but he went public with that in April of 97. He said that also that the government has placed gag orders on employees of the National Weather Service. So if they saw some storm acting out a norm of way a storm would normally say, they weren't allowed to speak on it. October 2012, after Hurricane Sandy reduced down to a tropical storm, from the space station, they saw this super wide red beam that could be seen going through the tropical storm. And the storm rapidly after that became a Cat 1, but it was so massive in size, it gained so much size that, and also it took an unexplained left-hand turn and came into New Jersey. The storm at that time was so freakish that they called it the Frankenstorm, and that was Hurricane Sandy. Even though it was just a Category 1, it was so massive that no one's ever seen a storm that size before. But it didn't occur until after that so-called red beam went through that tropical storm.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like right now, I mean, our most current storm that hit North Carolina, says here, United States has over 6 million tons of lithium, which is needed in the push for alternative energy. The majority of the lithium has been identified in Kings Mountain, which is North Carolina. Kings Mountain is believed to be one of the largest resources for lithium in the world. The problem is that the people there, they don't want their towns to become lithium mines. So Cherryville itself are fighting, basically them coming in there. They're living on what they call, the government's calling it coveted land. They want that land. It's got the lithium. They want these people to move, whatever. There was a $9 million agreement signed by the Department of Defense and a corporation called Albemarle Corp from Kings Mountain beginning in 2025 to 2030. They want that corporation to go in there and mine lithium. And 2025 is just around the corner. So if you need to move people or to move things out the way, what better thing to use than a hurricane? I mean, the nation's battery supplies what the military wants this lithium for. And when that hurricane hit that area, I think it was Hurricane Helene, they said that was biblical floods of the coveted land. So the military wants that land. They want those people gone. They want them moved. And they hit them with a massive storm. And how much help are they getting right now? Most of the help has been transferred down to Florida. $750 isn't going to do much to help somebody. And if farmers are dependent upon their crops coming in to be able to make their payments on their mortgages and stuff, well, those crops are wiped out right now. Those people might be forced into a situation to sell. And then how many of them up in those mountains didn't have homeowners flood insurance, because in the mountains you don't flood. So where's the money going to come from to rebuild? And if people can't rebuild, what are they going to do? They're going to move. They don't have any other choice. So that's a way of getting land without having to pay for it. Just put them on hard times and they have no choice. They lose it. But I'm going to stop there, Bishop.
Well, you know, with the fact that you did have this flooding there, okay, and this is the same thing that happened to any place where there's been destruction. So you can go back to Maui, you can go back to even here in Florida. You know what I mean? Florida get hit all the time. You know what I mean? Especially usually is up in the Panhandle, right into that belt area there, where it's there's one particular area there that is not a lot of population wise, but it's a lot of land mass there. But you have a lot of these developers, you know, hashtag BlackRock, hashtag Vanguard, that be going to these places when these destructions take place, and they buying all this property for pennies on the dollar. Now, let's go back a second. Now, when I bought up Maui, I bought it up for a reason, because you remember, you read the articles about Maui, that those particular people were over in Maui trying to buy that land from them before those fires took place, because they wanted to build resorts there and they did not want to sell. Well, then all of a sudden you got this fire, which wipes out half of it. And then they come right behind it and was like, oh, you know what I mean? You done lost everything. You know what I mean? It's going to cost you so much money to rebuild. And by the time insurance get to you, it's going to be forever. Well, hey, check this out. Let me give you this money right here. Let me give you this money right here. You sign this paper right here. I'm going to give you a check. I'm going to give you a check right now. And now you got that property. So what are they doing now over in Maui? Building resorts in the same spots that was once belonged to families that didn't want to sell from the beginning.
They got what they ultimately wanted.
Exactly. And they're going to do the same thing in North Carolina, because they knew that new deal was getting ready to come up in 2025, because not only did they get $250 million in grants to go construction of those mines, which happened to be right outside of Asheville, but BlackRock itself bought in $2.2 million in shares with that lithium company for when this started. Okay. And then how is it that just happens? You know, I mean, this is like some old coincidental stuff that we're talking about here. that 3 days before this storm even happened, that this company submitted permits to mine in that particular area. 3 days before. It was 2 weeks before when BlackRock came in and bought $2.2 million in shares.
Wow.
It was 2.5 weeks when they just finalized the $250 million in grants to be able to do the mine. And this particular area was also the same area that these same developers was going there trying to buy people out that did not want to sell. So they still got what they wanted. Now it just means now it's just a little bit more work involved because you had to wipe it out and then come in and buy it up. You know what I mean? Which is the craziest thing that you could possibly sit here and think about. Like, okay, would they really allow this to even take place, just to come in and take somebody's stuff? Like you think that would be far-fetched and something that, like, man, ain't no way. Like, I know that they may be dirty, but ain't nobody that dirty. But it really is.
You better believe it.
Right. Once you start looking at some of this stuff. I'm gonna play this one video right quick because I want everybody to know about that series. Because Aaron, you know what I mean, we was going on it and then you kind of you took off a little bit.
Oh,
so I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back. I want you to see this, but then I also have another one I want you to see, because we're talking about these hurricanes. They actually have labs that their whole job is to build a hurricane in a lab and figure out how to make it increase, how to decrease it, how to make it move, everything. So
what a crazy job.
Exactly. So I'm gonna play the first video. It's about a minute long. It's talking about the project series, so people understand, like, okay, this is proof that they have been able to manipulate this weather. And then I'm gonna show you the other one that shows these people are actually making these hurricanes in labs.
So back to back.
Yes, sir.
Cool.
That the project was about learning how to weaponize the weather, also claimed the reversal of the hurricane had been caused by Project Cirrus, but the government denied it for 12 years.
Atmospheric science. What was it like when you cranked it up the first time? Full blast?
It was stunning. I mean, it was it was chilled.
Nearly 40,000 gallons of seawater fill this tank. House uses a computer program and a single 1,700 horsepower fan with wind speeds up to 157 miles per hour.
This tank is the largest wind wave facility in the world. We can generate an extreme Category 5.
House and his team want to understand why some hurricanes make landfall and fizzle out, while others become catastrophes.
It's the heat of the ocean that powers the hurricane. We know that gasoline drives a car, but if you didn't know how much you were pouring into the engine, you wouldn't know how fast it's going to go.
What this is going to help teach you is how the gasoline gets into the engine of the hurricane.
Exactly.
Damn.
Right. So you actually have labs that they have built.
No, that was serious business.
That's right. That's what they do to figure out how to strengthen them, how to make it move. I mean, what do you have to do to make this hurricane massive? And you just heard him say we can make it up to a Category 5 in a lab. Category
Crazy.
5 hurricane in a lab.
Unreal.
Now,
Never heard of such a thing.
Right. Now you notice that with this past Hurricane Milton, that was a storm that basically fascinated every meteorologist around the world because of how it's set up. You know, they wasn't used to seeing a storm set up like it did, you know, because usually when the storm comes right there in the Yucatan Peninsula, it kind of makes that little curve right there by Cancun and Cuba, makes that little turn and it goes on out. This one didn't do that. This one went across and sat right off the Yucatan Peninsula and just sat there and just built and then started moving slowly. But if you there was a video that I had watched where that storm had actually dipped back down to go back and hit like Cancun in that area there. But then all of a sudden it bumped and took off to the east instead of going back south where it came from. And that's where they were talking about these rad radar, that they have them positioned in certain places throughout when they said the U.S. has hundreds of them, that they can focus those beams, and one happens to be in Cancun.
No shit.
That they can focus those beams to basically guide a storm in a particular direction. So the question would be, okay, so if you could do that, why you not just guide it out to where it just goes out in the middle of the ocean and just fizzles out on its own? Right. Why would you actually point it to where it's going to actually go through and cause all this havoc?
Right. If you can control it, why wouldn't you?
Exactly. If you can control it, then, you know, my personal thinking is that if you could control it, then there would never be any hurricanes in the U.S. If you could control it that way, because you could basically just point it out, you know, boost it out the way. You know what I mean? Hit it with something, bump it, send it somewhere else. You know what I mean? But instead of them doing that, they're seeding them. They're cloud seeding. They're making these storms big. You know what I mean? That storm, they keep talking about this massive intensification. That storm went from nothing, basically a regular storm, to a Cat 5 in 24 hours.
It did.
In 24 hours. You ain't never seen no storm intensify that quick. Never. Now, mind you, just like the man said, water temperature is like fuel. It's like gas to an engine. You know, now on one side, you just had Helene that just came through. So it pushed a lot of that cooler water that was down deep. It pushed some of it up, but not enough to where it cooled it down completely. It was still in the high 80s, high to mid 80s.
Damn, that's hot
out there. On the other side, it was close to 90, a little over 90 degrees. So it just sat there in fuel,
stewing
and spent. You know what I mean? Because it was only moving at one particular time. It was only moving at 3-4 miles an hour.
Wow.
It was just sitting there, just barely moving. That's why they had initially said that it was supposed to hit Florida Wednesday morning.
Yes.
And it changed from Wednesday morning. It didn't even actually hit Florida until late Wednesday morning. I mean, like almost Thursday morning.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Almost 24 hours later than what they said it was supposed to be, because it just sat there. It just sat there churning, you know. And then as it got up so far, then, you know, of course they said, you know, wind shear hit the tops of the storm or whatever. But when they showed that storm and they zoomed in on some of that, you could see them laser beams on the sides of them storms, you know what I mean, going through. They've been guiding them. Why? I mean, why would you want this destruction? that you got to turn around and pay for. That don't make sense. What are you getting out of it? You know what I mean? Because you're only giving people $750 anyway.
No kidding.
Right. So you can be in North Carolina, you can be in Florida, and you can have your house completely wiped away, and we're gonna give you $750.
All your cars, motorcycles, all your shit.
Everything.
Gone.
However, you can go over to Texas, you can come through the border. I'm gonna give you $8,000-9,000 a month to live on.
Yep.
But I'm only gonna give you $750, and wish you well. I mean, where does this stuff make sense?
Unreal.
It makes none.
It doesn't.
So what you were saying, Aaron, when you was talking about the lithium in North Carolina, I did find a little small video about that. And I also talked to some people that I knew that lived in that area. And they said that Kings Mountain you are right, that Kings Mountain is full of lithium. It is by far the biggest supply of lithium in the US. I think there's another supply that's like in Arkansas or something like that. But Kings Mountain is basically loaded with lithium. And they want it, you know what I mean? Because if you remember, they kept trying to sign them bills talking about they wanted to make everybody have electric cars by 2030, all that different stuff. You know
I remember that.
They've been talking about that for a while. Clean air initiatives, all this other stuff, dropping down carbon emissions, blah, 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 blah. Well, in order to make them batteries, the lithium ion batteries, you need lithium.
That. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And, unfortunately, it's sad to think that you would go to that extent. But when you have the DOD that's funding a lot of this stuff, because they want their hands on that lithium just as much as these other companies that's making these batteries and stuff.
You betcha.
A lot of mysterious things go on.
This is an extreme case of supply and demand right there. You know what I mean? That's wicked. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So it kind of like one thing goes into the next. So I'm gonna play this little quick one here about this lithium, and then when I finish, and Aaron, if you got something else that you want to add on to that, then go ahead, because you was already on a roll with that one. So let me play it, and then if you got something else you want to add to it, feel free.
This flooding in North Carolina does not sit well with me. I think something's going on. So I decided to do some digging. So the first thing I find out is North Carolina has the richest deposits of lithium in the entire world. Yeah, lithium for cars, batteries, all that. Then I find out they have the world's highest purity quartz deposits. And that quartz just so happens to be the world's supply for AI chips, microchips, and all kinds of stuff. We're talking a $530 billion industry. So this is where it gets interesting. So a company by the name of Piedmont Lithium is awaiting a state mining permit for a site in northern Gaston County. And Gaston County is completely flooded right now. The project was awaiting zoning approval because they were getting backlash from the residents and also city officials. And this lithium mine they want would be the third largest producer of lithium in the world. And they made a deal with Tesla already. Now remember the quartz? So in Spruce Pine, North Carolina, right next to Ashland, they are wanting to expand their mines even larger. And the residents aren't having it either. Enter the floods. People, these are mountain towns. It rarely, if not ever, floods in the mountains. I would know, I grew up in the mountains in Colorado, which means none of these people have flood insurance. I mean, the media is saying biblical devastation in North Carolina, AKA the worst thing that could happen, and you're not coming back from it. Read between the lines, people. Everything happens for a reason.
There's your motive.
So you didn't know about the quartz, did you?
I didn't personally.
Yeah. When I seen that one on there about the quartz, I didn't know that either. And being the fact they were using the quartz as semiconductors for the chips and the AI, and all, I'm like, oh, okay.
Makes sense.
I didn't know anything about that. That adds a little bit more.
That adds a little bit more juice to the fire right there. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So what you got on that, Aaron?
Well, going back to Hurricane Milton in your area, 187 mile per hour sustained winds, 200 mile per hour wind gusts, 897 MB as far as pressure, which MB stands for millibars. It's the number 3rd in history in size, number 4 in history based upon pressure. I mean, that was a major storm in itself. And it was moving, I believe, 10 to 12 foot tidal surges. It was moving that much water. And for me, if I lived in that area and I get hit by Helene, 2 weeks later, I get hit by Milton, and then I look at the news and they start talking about might be another one coming. Never in my life have I seen 2 storms, let alone 3, hit Florida within just a couple months. That looks suspicious as hell right there. That don't look like something that occurs natural in Mother Nature to me. And it also created record sea surface temperatures. So, I mean, there's all this stuff happening that doesn't make sense. I know I would want to move. I'd be like, oh, heck, as soon as I fix my house up, it's going to be tore up within another month or 2, and I'm going to be all over doing it again. You know, you get frustrated after a while, and you'd be like, hell, I'm leaving.
After one
and then
time,
I'm taking whatever somebody offers me, even if I have to take a loss. I'm getting the hell up out of here. And that's what they want people to do. They want them to migrate. They want them to move so that the developers can come in and everybody can get that economy going, and that money could be starting to pour through hands. Because if the economy ain't moving, no, money's not changing hands. So they want to keep that money flowing. But, you know, 3 storms, possibility of 3 storms in under 2 months, something don't sound right to me.
Cash flow is happening right now.
I'll stop right there.
You know, we had talked about in another show, we had talked about HAARP at one particular time.
Yep.
I'm gonna bring it back up now because you know this is very relevant to what we're talking about. Now, you know, a lot of people really don't know what HAARP is. Now, HAARP is considered a ionosphere heater. Okay, it's actually could be considered actually be considered a weapon of mass destruction for real, based on its capabilities, what it's able to do. HAARP can generate 3.5 to 6 million watts of electromagnetic current and send into the ionosphere. Now, once it gets up there, it superheats, and you can manipulate pressure zones from the ionosphere to the surface. So you can make, break, or change direction to any storm around the world with HAARP. You can do that. So have you noticed lately, you've seen a lot of, like, you see like lightning, all, you know what I mean? You see like excessive lightning. People you say is like heat lightning, or you see like a storm and you see, you know, just both, just boom, 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 all over the place, right? Where back in the day, you see a thunderstorm and you see a little lightning, and then you know, a couple seconds, you can pretty much count the seconds and you hear the thunder and be like, okay, the storm's 6 miles away, 7 miles away, based on how many seconds it took. But now you seeing lightning where it's just dropping, you know, click, 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 all over the place. Well, that's caused by dealing with this now our atmosphere is basically considered a iodized atmosphere because of them using HAARP. Okay.
Wow.
So you have this they did a study back at the University of Minnesota, and they said that there were 40 to 60 million tons of toxic conducted nanoparticles that was in the clouds around the world. that they have released over a period of time. And with those charged nanoparticles, along with this HARP, it's the reason why the ionosphere is so it's so electrically charged. That's the reason why you're getting them chaotic strikes of lightning, that is the way it's doing now, where you're getting, I've seen storms where you're sitting at a distance watching it from miles away, and all you see is just bolt, just doom, 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 doom. It's like synchronized. How
Seen it here too.
But that's from having a charged ionized atmosphere.
Interesting.
And that's from them dumping, all this stuff. Now, a lot of people say, well, oh no, that was, that's where you go into the what is it that they were saying before? Oh man, I forget the actual term for it. It's the tip of my tongue. From the airplanes.
Oh, the chemtrails.
Chemtrails. There you go. And then, like there was a difference between contrails and chemtrails. You know what I mean? They were like, oh, that's just the evaporation coming off the plane. But no, but then we showed the videos where it showed those big tanker planes loaded down, just dumping. You know what I mean? And
it was crazy to watch. Yeah.
And they've been dumping. They've been dumping. So that kind of goes right along with what we got going on now. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's going on that, like I said, the average person wouldn't know anything about. Number one. 2, they don't talk about it on mainstream. And 3, if you do bring it up, somebody's going to deny it. And if it wasn't a big secret, then why is there a standing gag order forbidding anybody that works in the weather service to disclose any information? It's a standing gag order that's been going on for years.
No way. Wow.
So if there was no secret, why you need them to shut up?
You don't need a freaking gag order. Like that's crazy. You're hiding something if you're doing that.
Exactly. And after there was another one that I seen on there that after 9/11, General Wesley Clark, who was the supreme commander at NATO at that particular time, right after 9/11, he had a list of countries that were targeted, that they were trying to figure out who done what. So they had a list of countries who they felt could be or possibly responsible for 9/11. Okay. Now, during that time, those countries that was on that list had record drought. It was like a 1 in 1,000 year drought. It was virtually impossible for all those countries to have a drought at the same time like they did, and they all did. And this is right around this is shortly after that is when Iran went to NATO, accusing them of cutting off their precipitation, because these governments know. I mean, China actually has a well-defined weather manipulation system that they've actually talked about on actual TV, that they've talked about it, that they had a weather manipulation system. So this has been going on. It's been going on for a while. They've been using it. And the only bad thing about it is that we don't know about it. And, of course, they sitting here playing God with the weather, and it's costing people their lives and their property and everything else.
All the resources gone.
Which is not cool at all. Okay, so what are you going to do with all these people that's, their homes are no longer there? You know what I mean? And the next thing is getting ready to happen. You're going to start watching. The next thing is going to happen. The same, it happened down here in Florida when we had Hurricane Ian, but it's going to happen in these other states too. These insurance companies, they're going to start dropping policies left and right because they don't want to have to pay it. They're going to start dropping policies, and then they're going to start leaving the state entirely to keep from having to pay for those policies. You know what I mean? So you get this insurance because it's mandatory for you to have, you know, to protect your home from fire, flood, whatever else go on. But then when it happens, they don't want to pay you. You know, that you done paid your money faithfully, but they
Yep.
sure don't want to pay you when the time comes.
No, they're the
I mean-
only industry in the entire world that tries to not do their job.
All right. And they hit you, one more thing, Aaron, and they hit you with these high deductibles. I know a guy down here in Florida. He lives down in Fort Myers area. His deductible is $5,000.
Unreal.
Just a deductible. So what if you done lost your house? You done lost everything. They're not going to do a thing for you until you get them at $5,000 first.
Yep.
What
And
you got,
then
Aaron?
you're still going to be fighting.
Exactly.
Right. And when a disaster's large enough, like the fires in California or Hurricane Sandy and them, if it's large enough, those insurance companies will file Chapter 11 in a heartbeat. They'll file for corporate bankruptcy, so they don't have, if they have to pay, it won't have to be as much. So that's their protection, that they can run and get government to protect them under a Chapter 11 in the event that the disaster's large enough and they want to shield some of their money. They'll file Chapter 11 quick.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, so we're gonna sit back and we're gonna watch this and see what happens, and we're gonna play this show back if we need to, and see if everything that we're talking about right here. Let's see how quick they either prove us right or we start seeing somewhere else all the stuff that we're sitting here talking about right now coming to fruition. We're just gonna check it out. You know what I mean? But we're gonna keep this show. We're not gonna run past an hour on this show. We're gonna keep it right there. And we're gonna sit back and wait.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna say mine first. I'm just gonna say, number one, I appreciate everybody come out and watch this show every week. We're gonna continue to put the stuff out there because people need to know. Period.com. We're gonna put it out. Whether they like it, don't like it, don't care, we're gonna put it out. Like, follow, share, subscribe, send a link to your people, let them check it out, let them watch. And I'll see y'all next week. Let y'all two say y'all. Aaron, you can go ahead, and then we're gonna let Mike close it out.
I've said it before. We prepare well today to have a better tomorrow. Get your supplies, get stocked up on gas, anything that you use on a daily basis. Start stockpiling it. So when these disasters happen, you don't want to be out there in the chaos trying to get resources when people are out there fighting over them. You want to sit back and watch the village idiots on your television set doing what they do and just enjoy the show. So I'll stop there.
With that being said, everybody, much love, loyalty, honor, respect to everybody, as well as you two gentlemen. Always a blast to be able to do the show with you guys. And we will see you guys next week in 7 days, man. Much love.